Hi, this video is kind of special. I don't know how it's going to go. Not for any. The only reason why I don't know how it's going to go is because the thing I'm looking at is huge. It's massive. There's so many double entendres, and I'm not even going to go there. No. But it's one thing I've had. A few people have asked for me to do a video on it. By a few, I think it's just one. I think it might just be Geeky or Hug. But I'm going to give it a look. And like I said, I don't know how it's going to go, just because of the sheer size. I was trying to do like a top down of it, but the whole, I've just not got the equipment to do the top down because of the bloody big size of it. So I'm looking at Shane. Who the fuck's Shane? I'm looking at Slaine the Horn God. So it's a massive book, just to show you how big it is. I have a few of the Dark Horse library editions, which are bigger than having a fringe moment, which are. I'll be right back. Okay, so that'll stop me prattling about with my fringe because I'm a absolute twat when it comes to filming videos and leaving my hair alone. I just can't. So this should hopefully solve it. As I was saying, I've got some Dark Horse Library editions which are bigger than an omnibus. So this is the Nocturnals Omnibus Volume 1. Really big size book. But it's a little baby compared to Slaine. So as you can see, it's bigger than Nocturnals. Compare it against the 2000 AD comic. A lot bigger than a 2000 AD comic. So what you get in this book, you get the old book 1, book 2 and book 3 of Slaine the Horned God. It's normal standard price is £39.99 or US dollars $54.99, Canadian dollars $64.99. You can buy it from 2000AD.com, Amazon, all comic shops. So you might be able to get some deals. I got a really good deal for mine from an online seller. I got this for £24.99. So I think there's about 200 and whatever pages. It's got some. What I like about it, it's so big. It's got a really good afterword, which gives a bit of back history on the world of Slaine. Because unlike Conan, which is set in Hyperborea, which is just this made-up place, Slaine is set in the Celtic Isles, so it's based on Welsh, Scottish, Irish, and English history, with all the mythology that was seeped into the landscape of that time. So it's got that bit more of a historical gravitas to what a lot of normal fantasy comics have. Because one thing I like about Pat Mills, with a lot of his strips, he is fascinated by history. That's why Charlie's War is quite possibly the best war comic ever created, and I do recommend picking out the 3 volumes that are out, quite chunky volumes, what you can get at the moment. Even if in the US or Canada or wherever, you can still pick it up quite easily, and it's literally the best war comic I've ever read. But get some hankies because it gets you there as well. It shows that they were just boys in a war and they weren't prepared for it, and it was the worst war. It was the First World War. They didn't have the same modern technology, so it's much more brutal. But that's a big, massive digression, which I'm great at doing. So let's go back to this book. The cover is beautiful. This is what people, I think, remember Slaine as being, this dynamic, almost like Frank Frazetta style artwork. So like I said, it gives a bit of back history there. I'm going to show you the back contents, the back matter, if you've umming and ahhing about it. So it gives you some of his sketches, also some of his illustration ideas for different covers for different collections of this. What I do love about this is you can see the progress of Simon Bisley as an artist. So in the first book, It's very, very painterly. Like I said, very much influenced by Frank Frazetta and that ilk of book and comic fantasy illustration. Beautiful, beautiful artwork. I mean, this is just jaw-droppingly beautiful. So Slaine, it doesn't skimp on the sex and the violence. So if you're a bit prudish and you don't like the odd nipple, then I would steer clear. But what I like about it, he uses paints, but then he'll throw in some mixed media, like on this page, just to convey a different mood. So he'll throw some pencil work and pencil crayon work. Ukko is one of my favourite characters. He's this mischievous elf. He's basically just a bastard. He's completely horrible, but he's great. He's a lovable rogue, and the colour work, colour panels, like for going in the water and all. It's just, oh, it's just wonderful. What I will say as well, next year, like they've done with Nemesis, where they're bringing out like a definitive Nemesis collection, they're doing that with Slaine, which will, I think, collect the other collections of Slaine. So there's some beautiful black and white art which are going to be collected, which features the work of Mick McMahon and Glenn Fabry and other great stellar artists, David Pugh and people like that. And then I have the colour artists coming in later on after Simon Bisley did this wonderful work. But again, so like you can see, it's a real... I forgot how much mixed media he used early on. So initially he kind of like started as almost like a Frazetta copyist, but he developed his own style. Very, very quickly he developed his own style, and he was one of the first artists in American and English comics in the 80s to start this painterly style. Before then it was just your typical pencil and then ink over the top and then your scanned colours, you just your normal colours from the colourist. This was 100% painted comics, and it's like this is what makes it such a pivotal work of the 80s. I'd say this is as important, if not more important, than Dark Knight Returns. Just for the artistic side, it showed you what could be done with everyday comics, and there was suddenly this, especially in 2008, there's this huge explosion of painted comics then from different artists. Chris Staples, Glenn Fabry started painting more. Lots of different artists were picking up the brush and not just doing... Dermot Power's another one that comes to mind. They weren't just doing the typical ink and then having it coloured, and it crept it through to America as well, where there's much more painterly art styles. Bill Sienkiewicz became huge by doing mixed media. Before, I don't know if it was around about the same time this with Elektra, but yeah, I'd say definitely Sam Bisley was a trailblazer for this. So this is book 2. As you can see, the art style is changing slightly. It's getting a bit looser. It was very tight in the first one, gorgeous to look at, but much tighter. Whereas this one, you could tell he was a confident artist by now, and it showed there wasn't as much insistence on making everything look perfect, everything look physically accurate. It was more the mood. So if a splash of colour would work instead of like getting the hues just perfectly, then he would go for that. Like that panel there, it's almost like something from Lord of the Rings, Sauron. And then they've got these shocks of just bold blue sky. People say don't do a blue sky, but when you do it like this, it works perfectly. So it really offsets the redness of the dragon. And then this one, this green, and it also shows, it conveys the mood of the characters, like this queasiness. just fantastic. And this is from when Sam Bisley did this. It was like the late 80s, late 80s. When he did book two, he wouldn't have been old. He's only what 60 something now. He'd have been in his late 20s at the time. Nobody should be this talented at that age. I think the only problem is, it's like he did this amazing work at the beginning of his career. How do you top it? And I don't think, to be honest, he ever has. He's done some fantastic stuff like the Lobo comic, but nothing to this degree. This was just pioneering work. I mean, that composition in the top panel there is just beautiful. It's so photographic. But unlike Greg Land even, this is pure imagination. He might use like Alex Ross's figures for the composition, but unlike Alex Ross, he doesn't use the likenesses of people. This is all from his head. I mean, look at the Ucko in his diving gear, just wonderful. And that became such an iconic profile of Slaine. I mean, without Simon Bisley, wouldn't have artists like Liam Sharp. He showed you that you can do it. Fantasy's cool. That cover. So we'll skip ahead now to book 3. So, oh my god, that open scene from the start of book 3, it's just a feast. It's going to take me ages to read this. Not for the amount of pages in it, just the sheer amount of detail in the artwork. I mean, looking at this picture now, there's just loads of little characters in the background. So it's very photographic. So you've got the main figures at the forefront, detail perfect, anatomy perfect, and it just gets smaller and smaller and smaller, and it just becomes like these impressionistic blobs. It's just brilliant. The way it makes your eyes just focus on the action, and you see things more because of the detail of the front part. It appears like there's more detail in the foreground than there actually is. It's a very, very clever visual device what is used there. Really beautiful. Nice bit of kiss my axe action. I don't want to go too much in the story because you need to read it. Plus, to be honest, I can't remember much from it because it's been a long time since I've last read it. I'm going to put aside a weekend to read this, to be honest. I mean, that's pure Death Dealer. Frank Princess's Death Dealer just there. But what I remember is I used to love the interplay between Ucko, the dwarf, and Slaine. I mean, Slaine's this big, burly... He makes Conan look flabby. He's this big, burly, Celtic warrior. And Ucko's this little mischievous dwarf. But it's an oddball couple that works. But as this book 3 progressed, it was getting more like the Bisley artwork, what you see nowadays, like in Lobo and onwards from there. The more experimental side of him, where it became a lot looser with his pencils. That's a wonderful panel. This is, I remember this image, but in this size it's just amazing. Look at the fluid action of the axe with the blood, just this impressionistic streak. And what I like about Pat Mills on his end of the story, he lets the story breathe. He doesn't do a Tom King where he thinks he's got to have a panel to explain something and have dialogue. He just has a panel, then lets the action speak for itself. But again, more evolution even in this story in Simon Bisley's style. He's not afraid to let his art style just move and be fluid. Whereas some artists are so restricted in keeping their particular style that they're afraid to break free. It's like when Jim Lee broke free with Death Blow, when he started doing his Frank Millerisms, um, people were up in arms because they weren't used to it. It was a shock to the system, whereas Bisley just does it naturally, so you expect it. Like here again, a big shift in style, and equally beautiful. That picture there, though, with the holding the axe, just iconic. But you can see the look in his face as well, the strain in his face. So there's nothing, so much detail, but he doesn't skimp on the expressions as well. He's just such a craftsman when it comes to artwork. That's almost biblical. It's like John the Baptist being beheaded, which he did do a series on Bible stories, I think, Simon Bisley, which I'll have to hunt up. I think it's quite hard to get. But this just shows how good he really is. And if you want to see a good monster, Magic the Gathering has nothing on this kind of monster. But I love Slaine. Slaine's my favourite fantasy series, more than Conan and that lot. There's just an edge to it, even with as it's gone on, and they've always had the cream of the crop with artists. Leonardo Manco did Dragon Tamer, which I highly recommend as well, which was the last main Slaine story, if you can get it in hardback still. And again, just gorgeous, beautiful artwork. But look at look at the blues and the greens on this. Oh, it's just wonderful. Nothing says the sea more than that panel there. Because it's hard to do action painting. I've tried painting illustrations myself. So much easier to do with a pen, because then you can just let the colorist just take over. And then you put lines for like movement lines in your arms and all that. But painting it like that is hard, and he does such a wonderful job. And then here you go, more bold, more expressionistic with the paint, but it's still identifiable. So the features are more in shadow, just wonderful. And this warp spasm. So the thing that Slaine has over Conan, he has what they call a warp spasm. So his whole body contorts, his eyes bulge out, muscles expand, and he just gets infused with the power of the earth from the earth goddess, and that power just helps him fight the enemy. And each artist who's worked on Slaine, each version of the warp spasm is just a joy to behold. And then you've got this wonderful crucifixion with hints of the Green Man going on. In my eyes, I would put Simon Bisley as one of the greats. He's up there with Frank Frazetta for painterly style, for just how you look up at a page. It's like just looking at that cover. You look at it and you go, how? This was before people started doing digital artwork. People nowadays would be scared to pick up a brush and pen and mixed media and just do something like this. The likes of Simon Bisley and Bill Sienkiewicz, but the likes of those type of people who just push the boundaries with pen, paper, and art, paint, and ink and gouache and mixed media and whatnot. They're a dying breed, so treasure things like this. This is a wonderful story. Got great writing, it's got beautiful artwork, but it's a wonderful timestamp as well on this explosion in comics, the exciting timestamp from the mid-80s when things were just changing in comics, and this, like I said, was a brand new movement in what you could do with painted art in comics. It had not been seen in forever. It just used to be for the realm of the covers, but to do it inside, unless it was in a European comic, was something you never heard of. And it's just a wonderful thing to have. If you're just going to buy a book and skim read it, you're going to miss out. Savour it, devour every image, devour every panel, go back and devour and just read it again. I mean, I've just found that. I mean, again, such a juxtaposition compared to some of the earlier pages of artwork. Just wonderful. Yeah. This is I'm going to give this a scoring of 11 out of 10. It's just the perfect package. I knew it was going to be big, but like I said, I thought it was going to be like the treasury size what Dark Horse do. I had no idea it was going to be this big. Oh wow, it's worth the money. It is worth the money. I wouldn't have, if I'd have had to pay $39.99 for it, I'd have been happy. It's a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful object, and it's one of my prized possessions. This goes up with one of my never get rid ofs, like with my Akira box sets. It's very highly prized, and if you've never read Slaine before, this is a great jumping on point, because then next year they're bringing out the other works of Slaine in an ongoing series of collections, which again by great fantastic writing, and there's no poor art in any of them. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed that. A bit different. I hope I conveyed the images and the impact that this work has had, not just on British comics, but in comics in general, and the whole comic world from the, like I said, it changed the artistic outlook, what you could do with comics. Okay, so bye. Bye-bye.